The night on Epsilon 7 was unforgiving. Commander Rava of the Keltharian Imperial Fleet had been taught that humans were dangerous, unpredictable, and ruthlessly territorial. Her training modules had been clear: avoid contact, maintain distance, never show weakness. Now, as she lay wounded beneath the twisted remains of her scout ship, those warnings seemed like distant echoes. The crash had shattered her left wing membrane and cracked two of her primary exoskeleton plates. Pain radiated through her body with each breath. She was dying, and she knew it. The human settlement was 3 kilometers away. She'd seen its lights before her ship went down. Rava dragged herself through the frost-covered underbrush, leaving a dark trail behind her. Her species, the Keltharians, were apex predators on their homeworld. They had conquered 12 star systems through strength and cunning. But here, alone and broken, she was just prey. The temperature was dropping rapidly. Epsilon 7's twin moons cast pale light across the alien forest, and Rava's body, designed for warmer climates, began to shut down. Her movements grew sluggish. Her vision blurred. She collapsed beside a cluster of rocks, her breathing shallow and irregular. That's when she saw the glow. A fire, crackling and warm, perhaps 50 meters away, and beside it a human. The human was male, dressed in practical thermal clothing. His name was Atreyu, though Rava didn't know that yet. He sat cross-legged, tending the flames with practiced efficiency. A portable shelter stood behind him, and various tools lay scattered nearby. Rava's predator instincts screamed at her to retreat, to hide. But her body wouldn't obey. She was too cold, too broken. Atreyu's head turned sharply in her direction. Their eyes met across the darkness. For a moment, neither moved. The Keltharian and the human, natural enemies, according to every diplomatic document and military briefing, simply stared at each other. Rava tried to growl, to summon some remnant of her species' fearsome reputation. What emerged was a pitiful whimper. Atreyu stood slowly. He didn't reach for a weapon, didn't call for backup. Instead, he walked toward her with cautious, measured steps. "Easy," he said softly. Though Rava's translator had been damaged in the crash, she understood the tone, if not the words. When he knelt beside her, she saw his face clearly for the first time. Humans were supposed to be cold, calculating machines of war. But his eyes held something else, concern perhaps, maybe even compassion. He examined her injuries with surprising gentleness, his hands careful around her damaged wing. Then, without a word, he slipped his arms beneath her and lifted. Rava should have fought. Should have clawed at him, bitten, done something. But she was too weak, and some instinct deeper than training told her this human meant no harm. Atreyu carried her to the fire and set her down on a thermal blanket near the flames. The warmth was immediate and overwhelming. Rava's body shuddered involuntarily as circulation slowly returned to her extremities. The human disappeared into his shelter and returned with medical supplies. He worked in silence, cleaning her wounds with antiseptic that stung but didn't burn. He splinted her wing with careful precision, wrapped her cracked plates in protective bandaging, all without a word. When he was finished, Atreyu sat back down on the opposite side of the fire. He opened a ration pack and ate slowly, occasionally glancing at her to ensure she was still breathing. Rava watched him through half-closed eyes. She was still shivering despite the fire's warmth. Shock and hypothermia were setting in, threatening to pull her under. Atreyu noticed. He stood, grabbed another thermal blanket, and walked around the fire to her side. He draped the blanket over her carefully, tucking it around her damaged wing. She was still shivering. The human hesitated for only a moment. Then he sat down beside her and, without a word, gently pulled her closer to his body heat. Rava tensed. Every instinct shrieked danger, but the warmth radiating from him was undeniable, and her body made the choice her mind couldn't. She leaned into him, her head coming to rest against his shoulder. Atreyu adjusted his position to support her better, one arm loosely around her shoulders to keep her stable. He added more wood to the fire with his free hand. They sat like that for hours as the night deepened around them. Rava's thoughts drifted. She thought of her clutchmates back home, of her training, of the propaganda that painted humans as monsters. This human, this Atreyu, could have killed her easily, could have called his military, had her taken as a prisoner of war, could have simply left her to die in the cold. Instead, he'd chosen kindness. As dawn began to break over Epsilon 7, another human arrived, a woman with medical equipment and a transport vehicle. She introduced herself as Ava, a field medic from the nearby settlement. Found her last night, Atreyu explained simply as Ava began a more thorough examination. Crash site's about 3 clicks east. Ships totaled. You should have called me immediately, Ava said, though her tone wasn't harsh. Her hands moved with expert efficiency as she checked Rava's vital signs. She needed warmth first. Figured the call could wait till morning. Ava smiled slightly, always the pragmatist. She looked at Rava directly. Your translator damaged? Can you understand me? Rava managed a weak nod. Good. We're going to take you to our medical facility. You'll be treated as a refugee, not a prisoner. Once you're stable, we'll contact your fleet for extraction. Fair enough? Rava's voice was barely a whisper, but her translator managed to process it. Why? Atreyu and Ava exchanged glances. It was Ava who answered. Because you're hurt and we can help. That's all the reason we need. As they loaded her onto the transport, Rava looked back at Atreyu. He gave her a small nod, then began breaking down his camp. She'd been taught that humans were predators, ruthless and cold. But she'd learned something else that night, that sometimes the most dangerous predators were also capable of the greatest mercy. 3 weeks later, when Rava's fleet arrived for her extraction, she filed her report with complete honesty. Her commanders were skeptical, suspicious of human motives, but Rava remembered the warmth of that fire, and the human who'd pulled a dying enemy closer without a word. Some truths, she realized, couldn't be taught in training modules. Some truths had to be lived.